For too long. Do 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 do. Wow. Hello. Hello. I'm in a classroom, and it's a very German class or Russian classroom. It's a very non-American classroom. It's Eastern European. I'm just gonna wait for my class to get here and whatnot. I figure, you know, should be like in teacherly attire, shouldn't I? I can teach. Hello, let's see. There we go. Now I look like. Oh no, your head blends in with the color of the chalkboard. That's terrible. I should probably ping the Discord. Eh, Ah! Okay, I can do this. I can do this! We're gonna be doing character motivation and backstory today. Exciting. And then I'll just talk to you. Welcome to Roleplay 101. Today's topic, as elected by the constituents, was character motivation. How do you find a good character's motivation? How do you find one that will fit for you, for your character? How do you figure out what kind of character you want to play? But understand that your character's motivations can change, especially in Metaverse RP. An important thing to keep in mind is that the metaverse is big and vast, and you're going to be interacting with fandoms and characters that you probably never fathomed that you would interact with. And it's understandable why some would find this task extremely daunting. Because it is. It is very daunting. It can be intimidating, it can be anxiety inducing. It gets you a lot of ick feeling. But I can tell you that creating character motivation is actually a simple process. You just basically plot out a chart and ask yourself some questions, and then answer yes or no. Like, do you want your character to be a hero? If yes, you go to a different question. If no, then it's time to answer some villain questions. Your character's motivation should be entirely unique to that character, but can also be part of a collective. It's basically their want, need, life goal. Their reason for being. And some characters don't have them. But when they do, they usually read as extremely flat. Also, just some characters are really self-centered because they're played by self-centered people. That can be a little bit daunting. Hello, Tiny Gina. What have you made? Why Emilizzi is cool? Because she. This is how you were able to get such clean lines for that cursive. Like, how? I see that. That is interesting. I can. You want to write like a pretty roleplay 101 on the board for me? She's got terrifying skills. So how do you find your character's motivation? Flowcharts. You basically draw a circle, put your question in it, then you draw some lines from that circle, yes or no, put questions in them, and you keep going on and going on. Thankfully, thanks to the advent of AI, you can now ask an AI to help you plot out your character's motivation. Just make sure it's not like a piece of shit AI that's trained on people's stuff without their consent, because those AIs suck. Hashtag AI art is not art. But bouncing your ideas off of a friend, for example, Hamiletzi and I spent an entire 4-hour session working at our characters' motivations prior to. I was high, she was like exhausted from not sleeping, and I'm like, we should come up with a timeline of our characters since we want to have their backstories intertwined. You can come up with this stuff after you started role playing this character. It is not imperative that you have to do it immediately, and I am not cute. I am not cute. Please save your cute questions for after class chat. But nerdy! There's so many different options. How do I figure out which one fits for my character? You look inside yourself and you say, what brings you joy? What would you have fun portraying, you know? And there's a lot of different things. For example, one of the things that Letzi and I set up for our characters was exploring their story as pseudo siblings, because Emma Letzi's character got adopted by my character's family, essentially. It was one of those friend adoptions. You meet at the academy and you become besties, and then bada bing, bada boom. Your character's motivation can be influenced by other characters. In fact, it's entirely possible for that motivation to change over time. Let it change. Let it evolve or remain stuck in your ways and stick to that original motivation. Either way, that'll change how you play your character. There's so much to this. I'm pretty skilled at roleplay. I mean, I have 30 years of role-playing experience. With, you know, a 3 with a 0 on the end. Which is more than most people in this game have combined. But there's a lot of elitism in the roleplay space on VR chat, and I'm sick and tired of it, so I'm doing these courses as a means of combating that, because you're not better than anyone. And if you know, are part of some secret group dedicated to the OGs of VR chat roleplay, maybe you guys should, you know, use that for good instead of trying to think you're better than everyone. Because, again, I was role-playing before most of them were born, so, you know, fuck you. Yeah, I started role-playing in online forums at around 7 or 8 years old. I shouldn't have been online that early, but I was bored. I needed something to occupy myself with. I larped with friends. You know, kids play pretend. I had my first D&D session at about 8 years old. No, 7. 7 years old, I had my first D&D session, and it was super fun. I played a goblin named Plotchenschnappel who only said the word Floofenfliefel. Nerd is a Peppa, so he has the experience. I have old experience. I've roleplayed on Gaia Online, I've roleplayed on old forums, I've roleplayed in VR chat, I've roleplayed on Tumblr, I've roleplayed on Twitter briefly, I've even done Facebook roleplay. If there's a medium that exists, there's a chance that I've roleplayed in on it. IRC, you know. Minecraft. I've done a lot of Minecraft roleplay. Where's the sink? Where's the sink? But I also want folks to understand that roleplay is very easy to get into. It's not this big mountain that you have to climb. It's not something that is incredibly daunting. It is, in fact, something really fun. Let's see, patting herself is an interesting set of emojis. I didn't think to begin with. Oh, this is gorgeous. Letzi has such fancy handwriting. So, let's give an example. Somebody in chat or in the classroom toss out a character motivation that your character has. What drives that character that you have? What about you, Letzi? What drives Juno? Yeah? And then Two Men's Mel character is a rogue AI. It's an AI that gains sentience, much like how other robots in the Star Trek universe, like the exocomps, gained sentience, you know? I have a character whose entire motivation is just trying to prove himself to his family that he has worth. And that's my ensign, Kenroth Shikanis, who just desperately wants to feel validated. He has mommy issues. A lot of mommy issues. Do with that what you will. No sound from VR chat, I think? Oh. Letzi's not being heard. What? No, Hey, Letsy, say something. Okay. No, they didn't. Hold on, I gotta... Oh, I heard what you said. Yeah. Alright, now say something, Z. Now say something.
Hello, I
There we go.
am sleepy and should be asleep.
So, Letsy said that her character's motivation is...
Oh, my motivation is the guilt I feel from having disappointed and run away from my family because they were expecting me to do something that conflicted with my own personal values.
Ta-da! So,
Yeah.
for example, Juno, her core values are her guide. They're how she interacts with the world. They're how she, you know, interacts with other people. And the Captain Jack Fembo is the same way. A lot of his values were ingrained in him at a young age, and he sticks by them. You know. And there are some secret plot surprises that we have plotted that we will be showcasing at a later date. But when I tell you that we have plans, I have plans. I'm really good at building overarching plots for characters. You
Almost.
always want a motivation behind what your character does. You always want something. They don't just do something because LOL random. They do something because it drives them internally. For example, Leaf. Everyone knows my role-playing character, Leaf, is a character from a Rust roleplay that kind of evolved. Their motivations are to keep the souls under their care safe, while also not being found out as the god of death responsible for their presence there. She just wants to farm, and he has a lot of fun doing it. Also, Leaf is gender fluid, so, expressing that and having that be a core part of their character is important too. A character's identity can be part of their motivation. For example, let's say you play a trans character who wants to get a proper body or, transfer to a proper body. Bada bing, bada boom. You do it. You make it a plot. You build up to it. You don't just want things to just happen. For another example, we're building a starbase in the VRChat Metaverse roleplay, in the Star Trek Metaverse thing. We're going to be doing side missions to get materials for that, and then over time, I'm hoping by next year, by February, we have, canonically built it. But who knows? Roleplay involves a lot of people intermixing their characters' motivations, and sometimes that can lead to conflict. As long as that conflict stays in character, that's fine. It's when people start getting uncomfortable or bitching about characters' behaviors out of character that becomes the problem. Remember, a character doing something does not mean the person themselves is endorsing that action or doing that action. They're playing a character. Some people play villains. You're gonna have to deal with that. You can choose who you do and do not interact with. But you still gotta deal with the fact that some people play characters who are assholes. Some people play characters who are so autistic that they recognize the patterns in a series of events and are able to summarize a big plot twist far too early. That's what you gotta deal with. You have to be smarter than those smart characters. Some characters are so dumb that in trying to get them to do something is like pushing a boulder uphill. It's an almost Sisyphean task. Doesn't matter. Good storytelling evolves around characters, their flaws, and their skills. And anyone who plays a flawless character is a fucking idiot. Because, yeah, no one's flawless. Everyone has flaws. Even characters that are bigger and more expansive than a human brain can comprehend still have flaws. And it is important to remember that. Give your character appropriate flaws. Nobody can play a character that is an unstoppable juggernaut every second of every day. Heavy, thank you for the sub. I hope you're having a good day. Yay. Thank you for swinging by. I don't think this stream is going to be super long unless I go hang out somewhere in VR afterwards. I just really want to get, this hunk done so we can, move on and talk about other things. Now, your character's motivation can also be tied to their backstory. developing a good backstory is important. You do not want to fill your character's backstory with tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, because then you're basically making the Baudelaire children from a series of unfortunate events. Give your characters some wins, some losses, give them a variety of I'm not flawless, I'm clumsy and can't cook, and that makes up for being half dragon, half cat girl, and half Super Saiyan. I mean, basically that's what it is. You need to give your characters actual flaws. One of Jack's big flaws is his temper. He can fly off the handle sometimes. On duty, he handles himself in behavior becoming of a Starfleet officer, but when he's just himself, he sometimes gets grumpy and he goes he just makes that noise when he's agitated, which is a lot. But he's an excellent leader despite his anger. It hasn't led to conflict that the crew has had to address. It's more just interpersonal conflict and people not liking him specifically, or people finding his anger amusing and being like, yeah, my entire purpose in life is going to be to agitate this thing because I enjoy the sounds he makes, you know. Kenrod is a coward from a warrior people. He just doesn't like to fight. He doesn't want to do harm. He is literally the embodiment of first do no harm. He is the Hippocratic Oath. He's an Andorian who are strong warriors and very tough, and he's so soft and gentle and sweet that he stands out among his people. That would be like a Klingon who loves Hello Kitty, you know? It's weird, but playing weird characters can lead itself to cool plots, cool developments, you know, a lot of neat things. That's the important thing. You gotta, like, give yourself a bit of variety. You can't play the same angsty half-demon, half-angel that you've always played over and over and over and over again. It gets dull, it gets pedantic. People are bored by that. This is why I am, you know, I mean, not personally, but I've been told that I play a variety of characters that to the point where people don't think that I'm the same person who plays these characters. I have a character called Lady Darkside, who is the embodiment of grace and beauty and a little bit of feminine villainy, darlings.
And then I got Spider-Man, who's basically a crack whore.
You know, you wanna... It's so much fun to play variety characters. Now, not everyone can do that, but anyone can work their way into working out of that box that they're in. You can do vocal training, you can do writing exercises. It's a lot easier to play a diversity of characters when you don't have to voice them yourself, but voice mod exists, you know, and as long as you're using ethical AI voices, fine on that too. I don't personally use them myself, but I'm not gonna knock anybody trying, especially if it's like an ethical one, like with voice mod. They paid their actors. They served their nickel. You having fun? Oh! This is a very cool... I'm gonna take a picture of this when Letsy's all done. Letsy's writing some cool notes on the board. So, character backstory. Most characters' parents are dead. Be different. Have your parents be alive. Have your character have a great relationship with your parents. You know, now there are some things that you might want to explore that you've dealt with personally as a roleplay character, as a means of maybe coming to terms with them, acknowledging your trauma and moving on. Don't do this without a therapist on hand or like some sort of support system, because it ends badly. Roleplay is not your therapy. Nobody should have to play your therapist and deal with your personal problems if they're playing a therapist for your character. I understand it can be really fun to put a bit of yourself in your characters, and I do it all the time. I have a bit of myself in every one of my characters. But there's a point of putting too much of yourself where you blur the lines between you and your character, and that can lead to further interpersonal problems. For example, people who don't like your character will springboard that into hating you, and that's called character bleed. Please don't do character bleed. It can be very hard, especially for neurodivergent people, to avoid character bleed, but it can be done through proper roleplay aftercare. you know, which is hanging out after a roleplay, talking about the scene that you did. And a very important thing, and I know some other roleplays say that you can't do this. You can always say no. You can always stop a scene. If you are uncomfortable to the point of anxiety, PTSD triggers, etc., you have every right to say, stop the scene, I want off. And anyone who tells you you can't can suck my dick. I have 14 of them. Get started early. Seriously. If you're a big red flag in a roleplay is if they tell you once you're in a scene, you have to be in that scene and play it to its conclusion. Huge, massive fucking red flag. You don't even have to do that in fucking theater. You don't have to do that in fucking movies. If a person is suffering, genuinely, IRL, the scene stops after care begins. Yeah, it sucks, but you're gonna have to fucking deal with it. Other people's feelings matter more than your character's story. I feel like part of this has been a rant about my frustrations with the VR chat roleplay community and how unhealthy and toxic it's become. It is, but we can make it better by being more inclusive and showcasing that inclusivity. And if anyone ever tells you you can't say no, please direct them to this video or to the specific clip where I tell them they can suck my dick. Or this clip. Hey buddy, you just told somebody they couldn't say no in roleplay. Suck my dick. They can. Fuck you, I have 30 years roleplay experience. The moment you have more than me is when you can tell me what the fuck to do. Fuck. I'm cool. Look at these cute notes that Letsy's made. Now, another important thing to discuss is power scaling. Power scaling, while we won't come across it a lot in the VR chat, Star Trek RP, because specifically we have it so that there can only be one Q, and it is Q Paul. Anyone close to that level, we do not permit. We're not going to permit demigods and gods and characters with every single superpower, because guess what? On the ship and on missions, that shit might not work. Deal with it. You're dealing with a Star Trek roleplay. Let it be a Star Trek roleplay. There's plenty of other roleplays out there that are for people who like to fight, like Fight Finder. There's roleplays for people who want a serious edge. You know, but do your research before joining a roleplay, especially if it's private roleplay. Private roleplays can be a landfill of shit-tier human beings and their narcissism. Trust me, I've dealt with that firsthand more than once. You don't want that. I know what's wrong, it ain't got no gas in it. Pops open water. Whew. Sorry, I had to hydrate. Is there any questions from chat or from anyone in the class? Do we have questions? Power drive rule the world. These notes. There's gonna be a picture of this in the Trek Discord. What about a nanobot?
I've forgotten what you've been saying.
What about a nanobot that can evolve against some things? So, here's the thing. There is a character in the Marvel Universe that has the ability to adapt to any situation. That is a comic book character, not a roleplay character. That character is incredibly OP, even though he got done and dusted during first class. I assure you, he's fucking god tier. You want to be careful with a character like that, because yes, you can power scale yourself until nothing on the earthly plane can handle you. But that's when you realize that you're a tiny fish in an even bigger pond, and there's galaxy-devouring entities out there who you're like a flea to. Not even a flea, you're like a mite on a flea. There's always a bigger fish. So staying in your lane and playing within your power set not only can be fun because it makes conflict seem like and either side could win, but it creates more approachability. If your character is nigh undefeatable, you can't really approach them, you know? And even if you have to nerf your characters, you know, do it. Nerf your fucking god tier characters. Have them be made suddenly mortal again. Have them have to work. There's nothing stopping you from completely depowering your character through some MacGuffin and having them work to build up their strength again. You know, yes, epic moments are cool when a character suddenly comes into a power that they didn't know they had. And they're like, ah! And then, you know, now they get to defeat the bad guy. But it's great in written story. It can be poorly executed in roleplay. Unless it's planned out beforehand, it can come across as cheap, it can come across as narcissistic, it can just make people roll their eyes and go, great, more of this main character energy shit. In a roleplay, especially like a Star Trek roleplay like we're doing, we're all telling a collaborative story. There is no one main character. There are a cast of characters. Some people like to treat VR chat roleplay as I'm the main character and you're all my side characters, and no. Let people be the main character of their own story. Don't run around with main character energy like you're the best. Like your shit don't stink. Alright, we all got our flaws. God's your character, but the weakness is gallium. I mean, yeah. Hello, Faquamity. 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 Oh, Faquamity. How are you? You just joined me in the middle of my Roleplay 101 rant, where I talk about stuff. Superman and Kryptonite. Exactly. Exactly. Superman has kryptonite. The Viltrumites have no fucking children. Sorry, spoiler for Invincible. The Viltrumites are basically incapable of producing any more kids, or they just kind of destroyed themselves into almost annihilation, and there's barely any left. Emperor Zurg has a button on his back that if you hit it, it completely turns him off. Remove a core from a power armor and suddenly it's useless. This sort of stuff. Give your character strengths, but also weaknesses. You know, and please don't do that bullshit of friendship is my weakness, I'm too nice. No. Even characters like Sakura Kinomoto from Cardcaptor Sakura or Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicles. She is pure and kind, and she is literally the embodiment of light in the canon. However, she's incredibly naive. And characters take advantage of that naivete. Sometimes she has to make hard decisions. Sometimes she has to address hard truths. Like, you know, the fact that one of her classmates is dating a teacher, and they're in, like, middle school. Might be a problem. How to defeat Nerdist? Just surround him in Sephiroth. Okay, listen. Do it. Surround me in Sephiroth. How many? Sephiroth. FBI, open up! But no, you want to create basically a mountain for your character to climb. Sometimes they might fall back down the mountain. Let them fall back down the mountain. It's a lot easier to push up than to climb back down, to try and lower yourself. Yes, it can be fun to power your character up and up and up and up and up, but pretty soon you're like, oh, well, I can respawn, so you can kill me or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't, that shouldn't work. That shouldn't work. Not at all. By the way, fun fact, if you do have a character that has a respawn mechanic, add a little bit of edge to it. Make it so that they cannot recall anything from their last respawn or something like that. Naruto clones, they all look like Sephiroth. But yeah, you wanna just...
I was gonna say, yeah, like... Wait, it's your last save point. If you do that sort of respawn, it's the... Oh yeah, you've done this whole mission, but then, like, you died towards the end of it.
So now you have to do it again.
But your last save point was, like, 3 days ago or something like that. You don't remember the last 3 days. Something massive could have happened, impacting the other characters around you, and you're none the wiser, and so it's... what's it? It's like, Samantha Rutherford from Lower Decks.
Yeah, basically. Or, you know... Either if you literally like have a character who can respawn with no consequences, that's literally a murder hobo with immunity. A murder hobo is a character who literally just exists to be an asshole and fuck everyone over and just kill things and be a bastard. Not to be confused with a gremlin character who exists to cause chaos and strife. There is a stark difference between a murder hobo and a goblin. And getting, like, differentiating between the two can take a bit of effort. You know? I have never played a murder hobo because it's mean and it ruins the experience for other players. Comedic relief characters, though, they're great. Comedy relief characters, just, you know, make sure you're actually funny.
Like when I talk about the Skibbity Rizzlers and stuff. On God, bust it down, this shit bussin'.
Etc., etc. Any further questions, class?
Oh no! I don't know.
All right, well, that concludes our class today. Thank you so much, Ameletzi, for writing cool notes on the board. In fact, I'm going to highlight these notes. And where is... What about a character that is god at cooking but has no motivation? Isn't that a protagonist from some specific anime?
Okay, hold on. I got a thought. Thing.
All right.
Thought. Question. Thought. Thing. Thought. Okay. So, because of the size of the Androgyny, it's a starship that can hold over 1,000 people on it. We are also considering having people play multiple roles, so that way they don't have to always be on as one character. Not where's my words? If you have a secondary character, they don't necessarily have to have an impactful drive that would like develop and grow and be like more for a plot. They could be more like I don't want to say like a Guinan character, but more a character who's already done their story in the background, and they're more just there to help someone else along.
Yeah,
they don't
those are called NPCs.
need to develop their own storyline. Yeah. But you'd be
Or
playing it yourself.
I prefer the term extras because I feel like extras has a little less dehumanizing energy to it. Yeah, we have all the notes. But yeah, extras, role plays rely on extras. You know, for example, we have the Satans. The Satans are an extra role. They're just there for people who want to meow, 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 or cat. I'm a kitty cat. And I meow, 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 and I meow, meow, meow. You know, for the cat lovers. But playing a side character is always a good thing. I have characters who are side characters to my characters. I'm fond of giving strong powers but subverting them. Like Lieutenant Nito comes from a powerful psychic race, but they generally don't travel space because telekinetic outbursts don't do well on spaceships. Yeah? See? Also, let's look at this cool...
I don't know. You need to add stuff yourself because I can't remember half the things that were said.
I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. All right. Well, thank you all for swinging by today. Hope you enjoyed the VOD or the video that comes out of this. And
Wait,
as
hold on.
always, Skibbity Toilet Rizzlers. For now, though, TFTB, don't forget to keep it gay. I love your faces, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm gonna go nom 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 nom. Nom 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 nom. Bye.